Welcome to VNN Ambassador Praveen Verma for our next episode of the discussion series. And you look very cheerful today in this very good fall day.
Yeah,
Any particular reason for that?
thanks for having me over here once again, and it's nice talking to you as always. And of course, today it's a bit sun has come out,
It's
and
going to rain tomorrow.
after 3 or 4 very long gloomy days, we have a better day today. And I've seen the leaves also coloring now
Correct.
a lot when I was driving to this
But
place.
you know that the Farmer's Almanac says the winter is going to be very bitter this year. There'll be more snow, and it'll be a sort of a record after 25 years. So we should
Enjoy the warm
brace
October.
ourselves.
Enjoy the warm October before we suffer the winters.
Okay, so now getting down. Today, did you know that today is the 50th anniversary of Canada declaring itself as a multicultural country? Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the Prime
Father.
Minister of Canada, he declared Canada to be a multicultural country 50 years ago on this day. What do you think? Is it really multicultural? Has that policy succeeded? Of course, it is open to immigration, but has the diversity and the unity, has that succeeded?
Uh, multiculturalism has been in this country for a long. It's not been here for 50 years only, and
Official
it
policy,
does not start with the immigrants itself.
Yeah.
Because with the assimilation of the territories and the Indians and the First Nation, it was multicultural on its own. And again, Canada itself is a part of a multicultural mix from coming in from Europe and
Yeah.
other parts.
Sure.
The rush started 50 years ago, and therefore Pierre Trudeau named it as a multicultural country. And well, we in India have multicultural. It is
And that's for ages.
ages.
Thousands of years, rather.
And here, when you talk of multiculturalism is at various layers. In terms of Canadian multiculturalism, and then the immigrants multiculturalism, and then the Indian multiculturalism, and multiculturalism adds the color to the community.
But don't you think that I don't know, I think the American melting pot, that concept, I think is a better concept than to unify the country, than multiculturalism, where say people are divided into different sections. There's identity, vote banks, politics, sort of ghettoization of people, and some people from different communities, they stick together in one community. There's no real integration. Unlike what happens in the US, where everybody is equal. No, there is no special favors to anybody, no identification. Isn't that better?
Yeah, Bala, but I would sort of carry on from the Indian experience where we have followed the Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam tenet, and the entire country has flourished under the multiculturalism which we follow in India. And if we bring it across over here, I think there are various advantages of at least trying to assimilate all the different immigrants as well as the indigenous communities, which will bring into one common. American experience is a different experience. American population is a different population. And here, the number of immigrants will slowly go on increasing. The indigenous population and the Canadian, European immigrant population is slowly diminishing, and more immigrants are coming in. So multicultural policy is, I would say, essential to keep everybody together.
My
Otherwise,
only question is, the Indian experience is different. The cultural ethos is different. I mean, there's whatever divisions there in Indian society, there's one cultural bond that goes from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, from east to west. There's something that holds everything together. Maybe the millennia of say memories, and that here there's nothing. There's a new Canada is relatively a new country, new populations coming in from different parts of the world, where some are homogeneous societies, and they mingle. Can they mingle here properly? That is the issue, isn't it?
the problem is that I agree with you that India has a heritage of multiculturalism and has grown through millennia. But in Canada, you have to sort of bring it in, because if you don't bring multiculturalism in, you will land into the various different nations within Canada, which would be difficult to manage.
Is that being encouraged here? I mean, that's a problem, making vote banks and.
Yeah, that is an issue I would
very
entirely agree with
dangerous
you.
trend.
It's a trend, but as the immigrants who come here mature, you see, because at present you will see much of the younger immigrants are sort of not well into the society. They have not assimilated. That assimilation has to come. It will come ultimately, but once it comes, it should come with a sense of being one, not in a sense of being different people.
Yeah, I was reading somebody suggested that when there are these community organizations holding their, say, respective festivals, instead of calling, say, politicians to inaugurate or politicians as chief guests, they could call members of other communities, other associations. For example, the Chinese Cultural Association is holding a meeting, some event. Let them call some Indian organizations to come in, or some say Sri Lankan organizations or Japanese organizations. I think that is where culturally they can get together, isn't it?
I entirely agree with you. You've got a very valid point, and that is where one should move ahead. Instead, what is happening, at least what we saw in last election, was total vote banking and using community groups and organizations as a vote bank, which is a wrong trend, and then that has to be corrected definitely. But that does not mean that we should do away with the multiculturalism policy over here, because that policy has to be maintained, it has to be fostered, and it has to be built and nurtured, so that it's the government's job to see that their policies run to the direction which they want, not to the direction which is contrary to what they want.
Currently, Canada side now, of course, the elections are done. No government has not been formed. I think Trudeau is waiting. I don't know for how many days.
Yeah.
And the Governor General is now. I think she's gone to Germany. So
quite strange with no formal announcement of the cabinet. It seems a bit strange for such a long time to stay like this, and then just small irritants coming up, like Trudeau going for a vacation and apologizing so late. These trends are not welcome, but then I'm sure things will settle down after the elections. That will be a minority government anyway. I heard just today that the NDP leader said that he would not be supporting the government bills on blindly, and he would try to ensure that the policies which he has fought on are brought on board. And the first thing would be to continue the benefits which had continued during the pandemic.
How long can they afford it? That's the problem.
That's where Trudeau would have to manage his coalition. Managing a coalition is not an easy thing. The last 1.5 years was very easy because we were under a pandemic, and NDP did support the Liberal government on all the points virtually, and did not really create any issues. But now it seems that NDP is flexing its muscles and would try to get its points through.
Okay, now coming to India, what's happening there now? Yesterday I read a report that there was about 200 Chinese troops entered Arunachal Pradesh, went into Tawang, where they were detained by Indian soldiers and then pushed back. So this is continuing again. And why can't India and China demarcate that border once and for all? Now they say, oh, it's a perception. LAC is just a perception. And why should it be that way?
It is that.
Nobody wants it to be. They don't want it to be solved. China doesn't want
it is that way, and the border talks has been continuing for the last
decades.
Decades, yes, and they are moving forward and backwards, and it is bound to continue for some time, because domestic political compulsions really force things to move in a different way. Today, the Chinese are a disturbed lot, as you heard, on various points. With internal problems and seas leadership issues which are coming up next year, and their issues with Taiwan and the South China Seas and now the Australians, and then the economy. Worst part is the Chinese economy is showing lots of strain, and I think their leadership has to
collapse.
That collapse, the near collapse. They managed it, but then I'm told that things are still not everything is not okay in Denmark, as they say. So Chinese have to divert attention. So that, and then this crossing the border and going back, like between India and Pakistan, when before the ceasefire and now, it's a continuous thing. The only thing is
firing,
we said that we won't fire. The only firing happened only recently, but that was a rare case. It was something different.
Yeah, I mean, okay, and this, India is of course still bubbling with that farmers' agitation. The day before the Lakhimpur killings, 8 people died, 9 people died, I think.
9 people died.
It's a tragic case, isn't it?
I don't know how these things happen in India. Frankly speaking, I don't know
where
how.
Were the police at that time?
Where were the police? You see, we over here are seeing only the media representations, and everybody has been saying that the minister's son was there and he's seen. Now, the question which comes into my mind is just let us know the details of where the minister's son was during that period.
He says he wasn't there.
He wasn't there. Now, the various shots of the accident from this side, and it's a total jumble. I'm not clear on that issue. 4 people died from the farmers' agitation side. Four people from some BJP workers, and one journalist also died. So, what I would say, let the investigation happen, and then one can draw a conclusion. And of course, Supreme Court has also suo moto taken cognizance, and hopefully they'll be able to control the issues when investigations are being done.
Kashmir, there's another step up in killings. So is it because the Afghan factor? You think so? I mean, just total about 6 people have been killed in the last week by terrorists. They're lobbing grenades, and does the Afghans come into play here?
Maybe I don't know, but of course India is apprehensive that because of Taliban's return in Afghanistan and all their terrorist infrastructure being available over there, the Jaish-e-Mohammed and other terrorist organizations, apart from the Haqqanis being in control over there. So we do anticipate some sort of a change in the terrorism activity on the Pakistan border. That's one of the major concerns what India has as far as return of Taliban in Afghanistan is concerned, and we are discussing with the world. As you know, Taliban government has not been recognized as yet by any formal recognition by any government, although the Russians and the Chinese and the Pakis have their embassies still over there, which would mean that de facto they work with them. But a formal recognition has not come in as yet from any part of the government, and the world is still concerned, and they still want the Taliban to come back to at least accept their promises which they made. That was to come back to no terrorism.
I doubt they will.
And they have gone back on all their promises, inclusive government, terrorism, the regime, and government.
Yesterday there was a mosque bombing again.
The Shia mosque was bombed. So the cracks, the cracks are still there. The Shia, Sunni crack, the Pashtun and the Tajiks crack, and the Northern Alliance, they were defeated in Panjshir, but I think they are not out of the country, and they might regroup. So we'll have to wait and watch. The Indian concern is basically over there to see that their Indian population is not disturbed, and all of them who want to come back.
Afghanistan shouldn't be a destabilizing factor in the region.
For India, it's a major concern. First of all, it was a major sort of a debacle in our approach over there. Our 3 billion of development assistance over there is at stake.
That is our route to Central Asia also.
Yes, so and that is the Chinese route to this area. The Belt and Road Initiative. It's a part of that. So.
Quad and AUKUS, what's India's role? Is it going to be better, or there's more heightened because of this AUKUS, and Australia going to taking over that region?
I think we have. You see, Quad, we had a meeting in
Yeah.
in
New York, in
New York,
Washington.
in Washington, New York, when Modi was there, the first in-person meeting, and that gave a boost to the Quad.
Not the
grouping.
military side. I think now they're
You see,
talking
no,
more
the
about socio-economic grouping.
what has happened is that Quad has moved away from a primary controlling China within the seas. Earlier, the China it was looked at primarily agreement to cut down Chinese influence in the South China Seas, but now it has become more on COVID.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Maybe India will not have much of the defense role there, because I think that's now being taken over by Australia, UK, and
now that's a military nuclear
alliance,
military nuclear alliance where the British and the Americans have promised nuclear submarines to Australia. Australia, I don't know, because Australian submarines till now had been using only.
3 days ago, they had a big military exercise. These three countries again in the same region.
Yeah. So that becomes a total military alliance to keep Chinese expansionism on tender hooks, because
they're still threatening Taiwan with overflying their planes.
150 planes or something.
150 planes fly over their airspace, and sort of threatening moves.
Yeah, they've been doing it because they have to they have the internal problems. So they have to sort of divert attention, number one. Number two, they have to flex their muscles to keep their position intact in the emerging world status. China aims to overtake USA in some near foreseeable future.
The world has recognized that it is not a country that is rising gently. That's the problem. It's aggressiveness, and I think people are recognizing it. Countries world over.
But then you have to realize that most of the countries are against China, so the world opinion is definitely against them. Yes.
Thank you, Ambassador Verma, and we are thanks for your input on some good subjects today. And I think we can meet again next week to continue this.
Of course, we had a nice discussion, and once again, thank you for having me here.